In 2022, geologists discovered that the world's biggest dam, named the Three Gorges, provokes earthquakes in the Chinese province of Sichuan. What's more, in 2005, NASA claimed the enormous amount of water in the lake behind the dam delays the rotation of Earth by 0.06 of a second today. The reservoir stores 40 trillion kilograms of water. On top of that, 80 cracks appeared on the dam structure shortly after it was filled for the first time. And even though catastrophic dam failures happen almost every year, nobody stops the operation of the Three Gorges because it needs repairs. In this video, I'll show you the top 10 most terrible dam bursts in human history. One of the biggest disasters in Michigan was caused by the lack of proper dam maintenance. In 2020, the Teton Dam, which was situated at the confluence of the Tittabawassee River in the Tobacco River, suddenly broke. The structure was an earthen embankment, reaching 16 meters in height and approximately 2 kilometers in length. It was built back in 1924. In 2018, the license of the company that privately owned the Teton Dam was terminated. It was already evident that the construction wouldn't be able to withstand heavy rains and floods. 2 years later, after numerous rainstorms had hit Michigan, the water in the reservoir rose to a record level, and the dam failed. Its eastern side collapsed, and the water gushed downstream. 16 kilometers away from this location, there was the Sanford Dam, which couldn't handle such a tremendous overflow of water. As a result, authorities had to evacuate around 10,000 people. The Tittabawassee River crested at 10.6 meters and flooded 3 inhabited areas at once: Edenville, Sanford, and Midland. If the Edenville Dam had been monetized before it was too late, most probably the catastrophe wouldn't have happened. A similar story took place at the Nam O Dam in Laos in 2017. A small dam built for a local hydropower facility broke after a heavy rainfall. A meter-high wave washed away rice fields and entire villages in the area. Houses of local people ended up buried under a layer of dirt about 40 centimeters thick. It cost the country more than $1 million to clear the fields, repair the dam, and paid compensation for the damage. And just a year later, the collapse of Saddle Dam Deep took the lives of 40 Laos citizens. More than 1,000 people are still considered missing. A raging torrent of water wiped out everything. In its way, it leveled roads, bridges, and houses, leaving over 6,500 people homeless. But one of the most horrifying disasters, caused by the lack of routine maintenance and timely repairs, happened back in 1976. The Teton Dam was situated on the river of the same name in the state of Idaho. It was an earthen dam reaching 93 meters in height and almost a kilometer in length. 1 year after it was erected, engineers noticed several sea bitches in the dam's right abutment. They were so small that nobody was actually worried. 2 days later, a breach appeared in the wall and began to discharge water at 57,000 cubic meters per second. This is 5 times more than the average flow rate of Niagara Falls. Within a few hours, the reservoir of the dam completely emptied as a result. A territory of approximately 780 square kilometers was flooded. Small farming towns on the riverbank were literally washed off the face of the earth. Around 80% of buildings in the surrounding cities were damaged. The disaster claimed the lives of 11 people. The water ripped topsoil from 40 square kilometers of fertile fields. It took nearly 3 months to remove the rubble after the flood, while overall damage and relief efforts cost the state about $320 million. The tragedy happened for one single reason: it was decided to fill the reservoir before the dam construction was officially finished. Consequently, the water leaked through the cracks in the wall. Then it washed off the earth and foundations and burst onto the land. But what about the Three Gorges Dam I mentioned at the beginning of the video? It was completed in 2003, and its construction budget was almost $32 billion. It's 181 meters high, and more than 2 kilometers long. In 2020, the dam held out against an extremely violent monsoon season, and no technical problems were found. Considering how much the Three Gorges project cost, safe to say there's no need to worry about the maintenance quality. And yet a few days after the dam had become operational, 80 cracks were discovered in its surface. Could the engineers have badly miscalculated at the earliest stages of construction? A mistake made by builders, or an attempt to save money on a project, may lead to dozens, or even hundreds, of human deaths. The Sardoba Dam failure that happened in Uzbekistan is a vivid example. In 2021, of the reservoir walls could no longer resist water pressure and crumbled down. The dam gates were opened. As a result, around 500 million cubic meters of water drained out. This entire volume was supposed to go through the southern Goldenistempsky Canal to the Ider Arnasi system of lakes. But the canal network wasn't designed for such a tremendous amount of water. Therefore, more than 350 square kilometers of land suffered from the flood. Cotton fields and villages were submerged. The government had to evacuate 111,000 local residents, and 6 people died. When investigating the reasons behind the catastrophe, law enforcement bodies discovered that the company responsible for the dam construction had decided to save costs on materials. As a result, the structure was way too thin and broke under water pressure. And that wasn't the only calamity where the human factor played a key role. I'm talking about the accident at the Icon aluminum plant in Hungary in 2010. A plastic waste reservoir tumbled down, releasing a torrent of thick red sludge toward the Danube River. In total, the reservoir spouted around 1 million cubic meters of waste material that day. Red mud were up to 2 meters in height. They overturned cars, uprooted trees, and flooded houses and fields. The torrent found its way to the Danube and polluted its waters with heavy metals. The government had no other choice but to evacuate around 8,000 people. 10 local citizens died, and 150 more suffered injuries and chemical burns. Although an even worse disaster, caused by a miscalculation, happened in 1963 at the Baldwin Hills Dam in the USA. The reservoir was constructed on one of the highest hills in the region. It was confined on 3 sides by earthen dikes. In the Baldwin Hills Dam, on the 4th side, however, the builders overlooked one crucial factor: the soil under the reservoir was unstable and could crumble at any moment. This is exactly what happened. In mid-December 1963, the reservoir keeper noticed sudden leakage through the dam wall. A couple of hours later, the whole construction fell apart. More than 1 million cubic meters of water streamed outward. The uncontrollable flow destroyed around 300 houses and inundated a territory that was home to 16,000 people. The number of victims could reach 1,500. Civilians luckily took timely measures and evacuated villagers who lived in downstream areas. Could not be saved. The current carried one of those bodies 12 meters away from the person's home. Just imagine how many citizens. If the Three Gorges Dam collapses, in comparison, the volume of water stored in the Chinese reservoir is 40 million times greater than that. And besides, the construction project wasn't flawlessly implemented either. In case of a massive flood, which is quite a common thing for the region, around 250 billion cubic meters of water are likely to pass through the dam. At the same time, reservoir has a capacity of only 9% of the mentioned volume. It looks like if the flood comes up, the Three Gorges will not break, but will be overfilled. In fact, carelessness of dam operators can do even more damage than natural hazards. In 2018, at one of Colombia's biggest hydropower stations, in the town of Itronego, 3 landslides occurred one by one. Because of that, the river's diversion tunnel was blocked in. The water had nowhere to go. The 2 remaining tunnels had been sealed during construction, and the station engineers couldn't open them, even when they used explosives, to prevent a dam breach. In a deluge, they decided to release water through the station powerhouse. As a result, expensive equipment disappeared underwater, but a catastrophe was avoided, or rather postponed. Due to heavy rains, the water kept rising and reached a critical level plus 5 meters in the reservoir. Sooner or later, it was inevitably going to pour over the top edges of the dam. It didn't do it, only because, at some point, one of the sealed tunnels naturally reopened. The water flow, 3 times more powerful than usual, spurted downstream. The same day, authorities ordered residents of 8 riverside municipalities to evacuate. There were 120,000 people only. 1/5 of them managed to do that. Until today, there's no official information about those killed and injured. And while the officials claim that the tragedy was caused by landslides and rings, local activists believe that the responsibility rests with the dam workers and their negligence. The thing is, the construction company had cut down the forest that it occupied the reservoir site. It was essential to collect and remove felled trees, and this wasn't done. In theory, the diversion tunnels could be blocked by the plant remains, although this carefree attitude of the Etanaga dam builder seems less shocking once you learn about the Sayano-Shushenskaya, a power station accident when the negligence of the workers led to the death of almost 100 people. The Sayano-Shushenskaya power station was considered Russia's largest and most modern facility of its kind. It was built in 1978 on one of the longest rivers in the world, named Yenisei. The height of the dam was incredible 245 meters. The station was equipped 10 turbines. One of them, Turbine No. 2, underwent modernization at the beginning of 2009 and got a cutting-edge rotational speed regulator then. In August of the same year, a horrible disaster occurred at the dam. In the morning, staff noticed that the second turbine's water consumption was higher than usual. It started vibrating and making strange noises. 50 workers gathered in the machinery hall, but none of them took the risk of stopping the turbine. That's because nobody had the authority to do that, except for the plant's general director, who was busy celebrating his anniversary. The director was nowhere to be found, and his subordinates didn't want to take responsibility for breaking workplace rules. At 8 o'clock a.m. there was a loud bang at the station. The turbine cover came up, and the giant rotor, a moving component that weighed 920 tons, shot out of its seat. Without delay, water spouted into the machinery hall at 255 cubic meters per second. The hydraulic turbine short-circuited, leading to a local blackout. The steel gates to the water intake pipes had to be closed manually. The whole process took around 2 hours. By that time, the roof of the machinery hall crashed down, and the water kept coming in. Workers had opened all dam spillway gates to reduce the water level. When the rescue team arrived at the site, it had to disassemble almost 5,000 cubic meters of rubble. Subsequently, 14 people were saved, but 75 station workers who in the turbine hall in lower rooms when everything happened were found dead. Moreover, the destruction caused an oil spill into the Yenisei. About 40 tons of petroleum mixed with water escaped the Sayano-Shushenskaya power station, spread over the river. The spill stretched 15 kilometers in length, and it was entirely removed only 7 days after the catastrophe. What's interesting, only 1 month before the accident, the Sayano-Shushenskaya power station had set an all-time electricity production record in 2020. The same thing was achieved at the Three Gorges Dam in China. Because of the extensive rainfalls, the dam's energy production reached 112 million megawatts per hour. As for now, this is an absolute record that no other power plant in the world has beaten running. The turbines and full load had tragic consequences for the Sayano-Shushenskaya station. If operators of the Three Gorges Dam attempt to improve its performance any further, the equipment may suddenly break down there as well. But what if the countdown to the fateful moment has already begun? My anxiety stems from the fact that there might occur a natural disaster able to destroy the dam. What makes such disasters extremely dangerous is the human inability to predict them. In 2021, in the Indian state of Uttarakhand, powerful flood waters came from nowhere and burst open a dam situated on the Rishi-Ganga River. This torrent swept everything in its path and damaged several dams of power stations. One of them was still in the construction phase, so there were dozens of workers at the site. As a result, 204 people died. But what caused that violent flood in the first place? Scientists at the Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology did research and discovered that the powerful wave rose after a piece of glacier broke off and slid down. A crack appeared on one of the mountain peaks in the Nanda Devi National Park. It kept extending, and finally, a giant chunk of rock and ice with the volume of about 2 million cubic meters fell from a 2-kilometer tall mountain top right into the river. Nobody could have foreseen this type of catastrophe, just like nobody could predict the Vian Dam disaster that happened in Italy. This structure was built in 1960 and still remains one of the tallest dams on the planet. Its wall reaches almost 260 meters in height. Its reservoir was designed to have a storage capacity of 170 million cubic meters of water in the first year. After it had filled for the first time, an apparent perimeter crack opened on the Monte Top mountain looming right over the dam. Then, in late 1960, minor landslide occurred on one of the slopes. Geologists got concerned and warned everyone that fully explaining the dam's potential was risky. It could eventually send a giant piece of rock as heavy as 720 million tons plunging into the Lake Vian. Dam operators listened to the scientists and lower the reservoir water level by 20 meters. The authorities and station workers were sure that a landslide wouldn't cause any harm to the structure or the local population. That's why, when in the autumn of 1963, enormous mass of soil and rock collapsed down the slope towards the reservoir, the engineers weren't scared and gathered on top of the dam to witness the scene. They were the first to die. The problem was that the landslide was moving 3 times faster than geologists had predicted, at almost 113 km per hour. This created 2 gigantic tsunamis. One of them was approaching the dam, and the other one was going the opposite direction towards several villages. Approximately 275 million tons of water rushed over the reservoir top. The wave completely destroyed the town of Longeronat. Rough estimates, around 2,000 people got killed that day. Today, the Monte Tonk event is defined as the deadliest and largest rockfall in European history. However, not only landslides can be lethally dangerous, earthquakes can destroy dams with the same ease, and if anything poses a threat to the Three Gorges Dam, that would be them, because, as you remember, the dam directly impacts this natural process. Geologists have recently proved that changes in the reservoir water level influence the gravity field in western Sichuan. In turn, it can increase seismic activity in the region, trigger earthquakes. That means the Three Gorges Dam is prone to self-destruction. What will happen if this immense thing collapses? In case of an earthquake with a magnitude of 6.5 or more, the cracks on the dam wall will start growing, and eventually one of them will start seeping. The leak will be small at first, but pretty soon 40 trillion kilograms of water stored in the reservoir will burst through the dam wall and hit the valley. A wave reaching about 30 meters in height will roll down the Yangtze at a tremendous speed. There will be no trace left of the villages and towns located on the riverbanks. 500 kilometers downstream lies Wuhan with a population of 10 million people. The flood following the dammers will submerge most of the city. The government will need to evacuate the residents of riverside regions from the area, covering up to 1,000 kilometers downstream. Hundreds Thousands of houses will turn into ruins, and hundreds of square kilometers of fields will be swamped. The flood may cause severe damage to around 10 million locals. Some of the victims will get killed or badly injured, and some of them will go missing or become refugees. Around 100 million people will be affected by the dam failure. One way or another, the country will lose more than $100 billion. This accident may basically become the worst catastrophe in history. Despite this, the Chinese government chooses to ignore the geologist warnings and believes that the Three Gorges Dam is strong enough to withstand an earthquake. What do you think?